Yeah, he came to the devotees in 1974 in Laguna Beach, that's in California, right? And initiated in Seattle, one of the wonderful cities in America in 1976, and took Gayatri from Srila Prabhupada very timely in early 77 in his disappearance year. He met Srila Gurudev in Badger in 2000. I think I was there actually in the year 2000, and he established the very well-known Sharanagati Krishna farm community in British Columbia, moved his own farmland in Hope, British Columbia, and has been residing in Vrindavan in Radha Kunj for the last couple of years. So we're very privileged to have you on the show, Prabhu. And it is, you're in India, so I'll give to you in Indian time, it's 12:30, up at 6 o'clock there. So please offer your Pushpanjali till 6:30 your time. Have you got a clock there, Prabhu, or do you want me to let you know when you have?
Yeah, I've got a clock here. I'm fine.
Okay, wonderful. All yours, Prabhu. You have the Zoom. You have the sun. Haribol.
Haribol. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pachani Nivashesha Sunyavari Pastachade Shatani. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Namane Shri Krishna Lila Katane Sadaksham Madhya Madhuya Gunashchuktam Ram Drainyam Purusam Mahantam Rainam Tam Sarasnamami Omeganatadam Dasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Meditam Nena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. You were making some interesting points, I guess, talking about what Guru Sundar was saying. And this is very, very true in the sense that, a lot of people, were very protective or sort of, feeling, some of the Prabhupada disciples that, Prabhupada's books are the be all and end all, and we shouldn't really deviate from that. And we see that when Srila Gurudev came, that he, really explained, like you were saying, explained the books nicely. And what did this mean? I remember for years, we, singing in the, the evenings, Shri Rupa Manjari Pada, and some of these kirtans that probably, Jaya Radha Madhava, every morning we're singing Nikunja Yuno, Ratikeli Siddhire. And these are all like Rasika things, but we had really no deep understanding of, Nikunja Yuno, Ratika, the spiritual masters actually in the kunjas, assisting Radha and Krishna in their pastimes, or, before class, Prabhupada would always sing, or we all over ISKCON, we would sing. Also, Prabhupada would have us sing this too, but the Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari, that the whole idea of Radha and Krishna and the Kunja, and our transcendental eternal position is that service. And what Srila Gurudev really gave us was the understanding of Rupa Goswami. Prabhupada told us about Rupa Goswami, and I believe it's in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita. He offers his respects, and begs for the mercy of Rupa and Raghunath. And we've heard these terminologies, but Srila Gurudev really helped us to enter into the deeper meaning and significance of it, because a lot of us, on all honesty, we've been doing business, we've been doing this, and a lot of us, most of us kept it together as devotees, but we really, we're on that sort of comfort zone, karma mishra bhakti level, and you can just sail by for years, and the thing is, and Gurudev really gave us that, deep understanding of, we've really got to enter into our bhajan. It's not, distributing books is important, doing all these things, maintaining temples is important, but really what I saw from Srila Gurudev was really emphasizing our own sadhana, our own, personal development in Krishna consciousness. And Srila Gurudev had an amazing ability to really connect with people. When he saw someone, he really felt that, here's, you could feel Gurudev was on a totally different level, but he could exactly see right through to your soul. He knew your emotions, he knew your feelings, he knew your past, he knew your future. And when he gave advice, it was piercing. It was a warning. He could see that, this is coming up, and, and he would say something, and it would be so important that, to follow, what Gurudev's direction. And I feel sad because some of these devotees that we knew for many, many years, and some of them were not able to take advantage of this opportunity of Srila Gurudev, and, and others were. And I particularly remember in 77, Prabhupada left in November 77. I was in Seattle, and we went. Prabhupada wanted all the disciples to come to Vrindavan, and those of us that were collecting and doing book distribution, we were told that we would go after Christmas, because of the Christmas marathon. And sadly, Prabhupada left in November, so we went to the following Gaur Purnim, which was in 78. And it was well known that Srila Prabhupada specifically said that, we should take, higher instruction from Srila Sridhar Maharaj and from Srila Gurudev. And that was a very direct instruction. And they were following that for a certain amount of time. And then all of a sudden it just came out that, no, we're not going to do that, that GBC decided that this is not good for ISKCON and we're not going to follow that instruction. And it was really, people, a lot of disciples went with it, and other disciples realized that, we have to follow these instructions. Srila Prabhupada is very important to follow the orders of the spiritual master. And we can see that there was a wealth of spiritual nourishment that came from Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and any of his books. And I was fortunate to be able to see him in 88, just before he left his body. But Srila Gurudev, out of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Gurudev I've got the most association with, from 2000 to 2010, and it was, probably, the most important things in my life, in the sense that the association of a pure Vaishnava is so rare. And, during Prabhupada's time, the example was often given in the classes of just like a turtle, just happens to surface, in a board that's floating in the ocean. There's a little hole in the board, and his head just happens to come up in that board, that hole in that board. And that is how rare it is to get the association of a pure Vaishnava in this material world. And so we can see that, having the association of Srila Gurudev was really, really vital especially for Prabhupada disciples, to really take it to the next level with the bhajan and our sadhana and things like that. And because basically we were really practicing Vaidhi Bhakti, rules and regulations, chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regular principles, and you're going to go back to Godhead. And that's, which is a very foundational structure. Sometimes there's a lot of ISKCON devotees come here for prasadam, and we're actually quite close to ISKCON here. And you talk to them, and it's all friendly and everything's nice, but you can see that they've really been ingrained in that, and which is important. But I think for Prabhupada disciples who have been doing bhakti for decades, that it's really important to enter into, what Srila Gaudiya was giving, like in Jaiva Dharma, Bhajan Rahasya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a lot of these really scriptures that really help to, perfect our bhajan. And even his further commentaries on Nectar of Instruction and these books like that too is really, really, really amazing. But I just myself wish that Srila Gaudiya would have been here a little bit longer. And I just felt like things were just starting to get going, and a lot of I could see a lot of the Prabhupada disciples were not doing well, and I personally saw so many of them just brought back from, I guess, the intensive care unit, and Gurudev just really reviving their Krishna consciousness and getting, starting their chanting again and their Gayatri, and he would give shiksha. He said, "I'll be your shiksha guru," and he was actually giving like a shiksha initiation. And he was making them, your Prabhupada disciples, not reinitiating you. I just, he would make a commitment to be your shiksha guru, and taking responsibility for our spiritual lives, because a lot of the disciples had been, kind of pushed aside and kicked out of ISKCON or neglected, or, and Gurudeva really, said when he first came, I've come for you, I've come to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's instructions to help his disciples. And that, I heard so many crying hearts, and so I came, right? And we just, in Bhakta-bandha, there's quite a team of, like a book seva team here. And they just put those out, like the early books, like 96, 97, Gurudeva. It's all actually up on Amazon now in the UK and also in Germany and all over the world, actually. And you can order them practically at what it is at cost, pretty much. And from just on Amazon, but Srila Gurudeva in the UK and the Holland and Los Angeles and all these in 1996, 1997. And the preaching in these books is really, really nice. Prabhupada's really Srila Gurudeva is always emphasizing at the beginning of his classes, he's always pays respects to Srila Prabhupada. He's always, giving a really good example of his teachings, and Srila Prabhupada's teachings are the same, same wine, different bottle. And then he would get the devotees to read from Prabhupada's books, and he would comment. And it's really, if any devotees haven't gotten those books, I would get them and read them. They are really, really, really nice. If you just even search on Amazon for Bhakta-bandha, and those books will come up, Srila Gurudeva in the UK and Holland and different places. And there's a small paperback, I think. I don't know, they were $8 or $9 in the States for the book. I'm not sure what they would be, and probably less of that in Euro. But anyway, as far as Srila Gurudeva goes, I really touched me to the core of my heart in so many ways, how he would just magically touch people and was so selfless in his preaching. And because sometimes we would see previously, people say, oh, I'm going to go to the West and collect, and they wanted something. And Srila Gurudeva said, I haven't come to, for money or disciples or anything. I've only come to put, Krishna in your heart. And Gurudeva did that. Even the younger, kids I saw in Badger and stuff like that, they were saying, this is our Srila Prabhupada. And a lot of those, the Gurukulis, some of them were not doing well. Some of them were, but some of them were really having some problems. And just seeing how Gurudeva just magically, transformed the lives of so many, and it made them serious about, about Krishna consciousness and doing bhajan and practicing. So anyway, I can't really think of too much else right now to say, except for, my deep appreciation for Srila Gurudeva. And it was just too short, too short of a time that he was here, that we knew about anyway, preaching in the West. And here, like with the True Baba, he had, so many, they've got a whole other sort of outlook on Srila Gurudeva here, because they knew Srila Gurudeva from India, and the early days in the moth, and the different things that went on in Mathura, and how Gurudeva preached there, and transformed so many of the Mathura Vasis, because they all felt that Krishna was born in Mathura. And Gurudeva would always emphasize that Krishna was born in Vrindavan from Mother Yashoda, and so many of those sweet pastimes there. And here there's quite a nice community of devotees. It almost reminds me of LA with the temple, and then you have all these apartments and buildings around it where devotees live, and it's it really reminds me of the 70s, and a lot of young people really enthusiastic and serving, and just thousands of people coming every day for prasadam, and families moving here now too, but anyway, I'll sign off. And
Prabhu, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
But don't you feel like obviously I feel like I have a really close relationship with Srila Prabhupada, even though I never met him.
Yeah.
And so it's always wonderful for me when I meet Prabhupada disciples, because it brings me closer. So I'm always greedy for that association. And I always felt that instruction from Srila Gurudev, both explicitly and implicitly. When Gurudev first came to Badger in that 96 year, we were in the big schoolroom there in Badger, and about a third of the devotees were standing in the back with their arms folded, like, who's this? Who's this sadhu? Who's this imposter from India, kind of thing? And then you had a third that were neutral, and then you had a third that were right around Gurudev, supportive.
Yeah.
And by the time the meeting had finished, everyone's heart had melted, and you could feel how Gurudev, you could see and feel how much honor Gurudev has for Prabhupada, and actually that Gurudev's presence made Prabhupada even greater, than, if that's possible, than he already is.
Totally.
Don't you feel, I'd love your perspective on how glorifying Prabhupada glorifies Gurudev, and how glorifying Gurudev glorifies Prabhupada, in the same way that Prabhupada came to tell us that Krishna is the personality of Godhead, and Gurudev came to tell us he's not, and they're both the same, and that like we're worshipping Krishna by serving our Swamini Radha, while the mind thinks there's a contradiction. The heart understands that when we glorify Krishna, we glorify Radha. When we glorify Radha, we glorify Krishna. In the same way, when we glorify Prabhupada, we glorify Gurudev, and Gurudev, we glorify Prabhupada. How does that resonate with you?
Oh, this 100%. It's definitely almost like what Sridhar says, that Guru is one. And somebody was just mentioning in a class here how like all of our different acharyas have Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he never lived in the temple or the moth, and he he's married a couple of times. He had 12 kids or 11 kids or something, and he had a regular job. And he's we sing his kirtans like every day, and it's so esoteric. It's so, these kirtans are so high, his mood is so high, so exalted. I mean, I pray the songbook, please let me understand these moods of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And at the same time, you've got Gorkishore Das Babaji. We've got in this, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada, he, really nice Tiki Brahmachari, Paka, and even amongst, the Gaudiya Math sannyasis, Puri Ma, Shidama, there's, these are like really strict devotees who came from Brahmin families, and they joined when they were really young. Some of them were like 8 years old, and, they never missed a beat their whole life. And then we've got, Jagannath Das Babaji and Gorkishore Das Babaji. So these are all in our parampara, our Guru Varg, and they've all got different personalities, but at the same time, they're all like completely pure Vaishnavas. And sometimes people understand that, like you said, with Srila Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, they're the same, same wine, different bottle. And it's just that the perception is always going to be, a little different. And even in Sridhar Maharaj's book, he explains, I think in, Loving Search for the Lost Servant, right? I think one of the last pages of the book, that he talks about, what the different contribution, how, Rupa Goswami gave, this perception of it is the deeper meaning of like we're Rupanugas, we're following in that line of serving, want to be a Palyadasi of Srimati Radhika, and how, Jiva Goswami, he protected that, and Raghunath Das, he explained it, he enhanced it, and they all had like different contributions to this, to Mahaprabhu's teachings and mood. And so we see that the same thing with Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev. I mean, Prabhupada's was just amazing. I mean, one of Gurudev's disciples in Vancouver, he's Benai Krishna, but he distributes a lot of books, Gurudev's books, Prabhupada's books, whatever books he can get, even Sridhar Maharaj's books, anyway. But he was saying it's just amazing how some of these small books like Beyond Birth and Death and Perfection of Yoga, that Prabhupada, just an ordinary person off the street, has nothing, never heard, like even myself, I remember like saying Krishna, first hearing that word in like 72, 73 in high school. And it was like, Krishna, it was like we had never heard of it. We had never, heard of the word at all. And like now we've got like in the West, a bigger Indian community, but I know in Canada, somebody was saying in like 67, I think there was a total of about 1,500 Indian families at that time. That was all there was. There was very little exposure to Indian culture or anything except for, with sort of the hippie thing with, the yoga and the meditation. But Prabhupada came and was able to really explain that to common people, and like Gurudev said, Prabhupada was cutting down the jungles. But Gurudev came right at the exact time, and he just really, gave us that, really sent by Srila Prabhupada to help us, I feel, to, perfect our bhajan and to, what do we think about when we're chanting? How should we, when we, sing these kirtans, what should our mood be? What should we be thinking about? And it just makes a huge ocean of difference, when we're in kirtan and we know what to think, we're chanting around, so we know what our mood should be. And it's like Srila Gurudev said, these moods and these feelings are everything, and so definitely, it's one and the same, and it's just, all part of, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, mercy that he's sent these, wonderful Vaishnavas to help us. I mean, here they have in India more. They just had a big, on Bhaktisiddhanta's Parents' Day, they had the Vaishnav Sabha, I forget, maybe you probably know what it was called, but all the Vaishnavas for Gaudiya Mas, they get together and they do, they celebrate Bhaktisiddhanta's parents' place. And this year they picked here, and they all came here, all these from all the different Gaudiya Mas and everything. And there was a lot of places just full of sannyasis and saffron, and it was mostly in Hindi, some a little bit of English, but it was, they really feel that, that Bhaktisiddhanta had, his preaching, he was sending Prabhupada to the West, and he was, and this came from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and this came, all the way back to the Goswamis and to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this was, the great, preaching, mission of Mahaprabhu. So on the other hand, we're very fortunate. And then Srila Gurudev explains that, the Kalki doesn't come at the end of this Kali Yuga. Like now we're sort of, the world's kind of going upside down, but shortly after this whole mess clears up, it's supposed to go into the golden age where people become very spiritual, and there is no Kalki incarnation that, that it becomes, more and more spiritual, more and more, Krishna conscious. And even Vamana Goswami was saying the other day, Vamana Goswami had predicted that India would have a Vaishnav president or prime minister at some point, and that he would greatly influence the world, in Krishna Bhakti. So, we're so fortunate in so many ways.
What you're saying probably reminds me of, I was told of a meeting that happened at Krishna Balaram before Srila Gurudev came to the West, where Srila Gurudev came to Krishna Balaram. I can't remember what the occasion was, but apparently he said, it's time, you've all done so much seva. This is well after Prabhupada left, many years after. And he said, it's time, you have done so much seva, now time to chant, now time to concentrate on your sadhana. And some people came away thinking that he was contradicting Prabhupada, but actually what he was showing was not only how high Prabhupada's message is, but how high the mountain is, but how deep the mountain is at the same time. And so some people could hear it was the same, and some people saw it was different. And it's quite extraordinary, and in a way quite beautiful, because everybody will get it in the end. And I feel that the end of Gurudev's Tirabhav festival, this 100th year, because 1996 was Prabhupada's 100th, and this is Gurudev's 100th, and this is also Prabhupada's 125th. This is not the end of a festival; it's the beginning of really glorifying this triumvirate into the golden age of Mahaprabhu, and taking all the Sakriti that we've all accumulated in this year to really not just offer it to our own hearts and offer it to each other, and offer it to our parampara, but offer it to people who don't even know about Krishna consciousness yet.
Right. So it's true. Your example kind of reminds me of like the Christian example that Jesus would come into a village and he would give a sermon, and some were deeply moved, others were, mocked and laughed, and others were a little confused, who is this guy, and it said that Jesus just picked up those who were sincerely moved and went to the next village and did the same thing and gave a sermon. Some were same thing, some were deeply moved, some were mocked and laughed, others didn't, or who is going on, they're confused. And the same thing, just picked up whoever was sincere. And
and
so Srila Gurudev seemed to do that.
And our job as disciples is to give love and affection and respect to all, and not to make people wrong, but just to show respect and to keep sharing in a loving way. And if we can do that, everything will be okay.
Yeah, I've really learned that since I've been here. The mood here at Radha Kunj is that they don't criticize anybody, and it's really like a big, everybody's sort of a lot of tolerance, and there's a lot of different people come, and it's amazing how when you get away from being, because in the West we're kind of brought up in the school system to be a little critical thinkers, right? But when you kind of move away from that, your bhajan and your sadhana become, it's just like, so smooth, it's just like going from a bumpy road to like a, well-paved road. It's really makes a difference. And I realize this is why Srila Gurudev really emphasized that, how, we shouldn't, we should avoid that and respect everyone. And he always repeated that at every class. I think you traveled with Srila Gurudev for a bit, did you?
Yeah.
In the beginning, so
I
you
wasn't
probably
like
heard him
on
more
the
than
tour
anybody.
party, but I would come and leave and join again, and had a lot of association with him. It's beautiful, always beautiful. But thank you so much for your beautiful.
Okay, well, thank you.
Can you make sure? Can you give Premanand Prabhu my Dandavat Pranams?
I will. Definitely, I'll do that tomorrow.
And if you could say, if he wants to send me a voice message on your phone, please encourage him.
Okay, I'll try.
I haven't heard. He's always he was totally like a mother to me when I first came. He was such an important person to make me feel at home, part of the family. He did so. I felt like a bit in his presence. Although I'm large body, I felt like a baby cow in his presence.
It's very sweet devotee.
Very, very sweet. Thank you so much. I hope you
can
stay
thank you
for the rest.